Let's talk change. So we are currently in the middle of some big changes around here. But if you recall in my last video, I talked about how at peace we still feel, even though we have all these huge things shifting around. And like so many of my mental health habits, I attribute that to the skills that I learned in getting my coaching certification. So today I wanted to share with all of you 5 tips that I use every time I'm facing change to help me accept them and thrive during that period. Let's get into it. All right, so before we get into these tips, I'd love to hear from you what change you're going through or a change that you've recently navigated successfully or unsuccessfully, so sound off in the comments below. The first step that I feel like helps with accepting change is having a growth mindset. If you're someone who is okay with things staying the same, that's great. That's one way to live your life. But personally, I find that stagnation leads to an uninspired life and kind of begins to give me that feeling of feeling stuck in a rut, feeling uninspired, feeling lack of motivation, kind of all of those things kind of welling up, right? So I really subscribe to the idea that you grow or you die. That might be a little stark. Maybe Oscar Wilde said it better when he said, "To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist." And I think that's true. I think that we get busy, we get bogged down, and we stop thinking about the life that we're leading and let life lead us. And you know, I'm guilty of this. I've definitely done this in the past. And like I said, it leads me to a place where I feel really ho-hum. And that's just not the kind of life I want to live. I want to live a life where I love what I'm doing. I'm excited to wake up every day. I'm excited for what's ahead of me. And that requires having a growth mindset and being open to new opportunities and experiences, especially if they push us out of our comfort zone. Step number 2 on accepting change is to remember that you are the director of your own life. No one else is in control. No one else is in charge. You get to make your choices. That can be as simple as starting with the language you're having around a choice. So changing those shoulds to coulds and those have tos to want tos. But there's also 3 questions that you can ask yourself as you're directing your life and facing a change. These questions definitely help you gain clarity around what you really want out of life and again, give you back the reins of control. So the first question is, what do you really want out of life? I know, I'm not really hitting you with the hard ones today, right? But it's important to know what you actually want in this journey. What do you want out of your everyday and in this life that you're living? I know for us, when we talk about what we really want out of our life, we want a life of adventure. We want a life of new experiences. We want to teach our children about how vast and amazing the world is. We want them to not be so immersed in one culture that they're narrow-minded. We really want them to have an open mind. And one of the best ways, not the only way, but one of the best ways to do that is to travel and have them see new things and have new experiences. Question number 2 is, how well is what you're currently doing getting you what you want? Now, this involves really looking at some of your habits and practices and evaluating, are they hitting the mark or is it a miss? In our case, we do travel. We do have FaceTime to stay close to Gabriel's family in France. We do have a couple of those things, but ultimately, being a tourist somewhere and living somewhere is a completely different experience. My husband is an immigrant. He has lived in 4 different countries in his life. I've been lucky enough to live in 2 different countries, and I can tell you from both of us being world travelers as well, living someplace and visiting someplace is really different. And we want our kids to experience truly living someplace else, immersing themselves in the culture and trying those things. And even when we stay a month in France, we're just not getting that right now. The final question is less about gaining clarity and more about increasing your commitment to the change. And that is, what is your current approach really costing you? So this is where you have to sit down and really evaluate, is what I'm currently doing painful enough that I'm actually gonna go through a change. Because let's not BS it, okay? Change is hard. So you have to be really committed. And sometimes you're just not ready to make a change. Sometimes what you're doing isn't hurting enough, isn't costing you enough that it's worth making a change. But in this instance for us, there have been some recent developments with Gabriel's family over there that definitely make us feel like even though we had planned on moving to France in a few more years, now is definitely the right time for us. All right, so with those 3 questions, we have our clarity, we have our commitment. Now it's time to capitalize on those and forward the action. So this is what we call forwarding. And forwarding is about when you actually take that internal energy and make it into something external and tangible. This is your first step. I would say this is where we are in the process. We are committed to doing this. We are far from having all the details figured out, but we are moving forward with faith, and we've listed our house. So the house is for sale. The house is gonna sell. We're not gonna have a place to live. We are going to have to move to France at this point. And yeah, sure, we could probably move someplace else and do something else, but the idea is we've already made the decision and this is the first step. So while you're still in that mindset of, okay, I now see what I want, I see what not moving forward it is costing me, I'm going to take action. We have to take action in life, right? Like we can't just sit around and wait for things to happen. We've got to make them happen. And that's what this step is all about. Forwarding the action, actually taking that first step and moving forward and getting things done. Okay, so the next step of what we do with change is visioning. And that involves actually envisioning forward what things will look like, especially right now where we do not have a solid plan in place. It's more important than ever that we're visioning it. We're trying to think through what's the ideal scenario here? What would that look like? What would that feel like? And begin to put ourselves in that spot, at least mentally. You don't always know what you're walking into when you make a change, but you have enough reasons to move forward with it anyway, and you vision forward the good. You vision forward and you imagine this being a good change for yourself, a good change for your family. It's more likely to become that. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So right now, as we're visioning it and we're going through plan A, plan B, plan C, D, E, F, and G, we're trying to imagine, well, if this happens, then this would look really great for our family. But if this happens, then this could be a really good scenario for us. Or if we do this instead, then here are some other things that that decision or event would trigger. But we try to make them all things that we would enjoy and look forward to. We don't spend too much time focusing on some of the fears or concerns around moving to France, of which there are plenty and they do deserve some thought, but we don't reside there, right? We don't live there. When we vision forward, we try to stay positive and imagine a successful outcome. So the final step to accepting change is something that we call safety net coaching. And that addresses some of those negative thoughts that we were just talking about. Let's be honest, no matter how well things are going as you're moving along, there's going to come a time where you're like, what the crap did I just do? There's something that we can do to help that in a change scenario. And the first step is to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Go ahead, let your anxious little mind run wild. I'll give you a minute. For us, I think the worst that could happen is we move to France, neither of us ever get a job, we burn through all of our savings, and we have no money, no way to support our children, nowhere to live, homelessness, desolation, despair. That's the worst, right? Okay, now that we're there, let's pause, come on down. How likely is that to occur? Realistically, that's just not very likely for us. My husband has an MBA, I have a college degree, I have my coaching certificate. We are both hard workers. My husband is like great with our finances, and we know in making this change that we're financially prepared to do this, that we have some runway to be unemployed if that's what it takes for us to kind of bridge the gap. So in the end, if the worst case is that we move our family to France and neither of us have jobs, now we're really just looking at an extended vacation in France. And that doesn't sound half bad. Yes, I'd prefer to actually like move and settle and be there and be successful, but who says that success has to be defined just this one narrow way? Maybe there are other things that could come along that would still be beneficial and exciting and worth experiencing. So that's all I have for you today. I really do hope that these tips help you develop a growth mindset, direct your own life, forward the action, vision the ideal, and create your own safety net so that you have the courage and confidence to affect change in your own life. Let's be real, the only constant, the only thing we're guaranteed is change. Things are going to keep shifting under our feet. So it's better to get on board, get a plan together, get some positive momentum and energy around these changes that are happening, and embrace that life doesn't have to stay the same. It doesn't have to be the same boring humdrum thing over and over again. You get to decide what you want out of life and how you're going to get it. So remember to comment down below with the change that you're going through. I'm happy to weigh in with some thoughts and give you a little coaching down there in the comments. And remember, until next time, if you want an extraordinary life, you're gonna have to put in the extra effort. See you guys in the next one. I always forget. Subscribe if you found this video helpful. Give it a like, thumbs up, whatever it's called on YouTube. It really does help me out and help more people discover the video. So anyway, thanks for your support.